Hello friends, welcome back. So in the last session we have talked about application layer. So now let's discuss about the presentation layer. So as the name suggests, it works on some kind of presentation. So the word came from presenting data in some particular format. And that format is nothing but converting the data from the English language or the user readable language to a computer readable format. So as you know, users are interfacing with the application layer. Suppose you are chatting with your friend using Microsoft Teams, and now Microsoft Teams application now it needs to transfer the data to the recipient or in some part of the globe. So that's where the presentation layer comes into picture. So let's dive in and understand the presentation layer. So we discussed about the application layer. So coming to presentation layer, so this layer is responsible for converting data into standard format. When I say standard format, the format which can be used to send the data from your computer to some other computer on the network. So now it is the time where application layer has already accepted data in the user's format. Now while transmitting that data over the wire or over the internet, it needs to be in the computer readable format. And these formats are nothing but ASCII, EBCDIC, JPEG, MPEG, BMP, MIDI, WAV, and MP3. And there are many more formats, like MP4 is one of the formats, right? So if you are watching a video, data would be transferred in the form of MP4 or MOV, or there are many other formats that are available. But the formats need to be understood by the computer. So that's where presentation layer comes into picture. So consider you are sending data from your computer to the internet. So encoding needs to be done. Then encryption is something that is mandatory these days because anybody can eavesdrop on your traffic if it's not encrypted. So in the last video, I have shown you an example of one website where I logged into that site and shown you how one can read the user account or user ID and password if the data is not encrypted. Now, second thing is compression and decompression. So this is an additional aspect that is done by the presentation layer because to send the data in an efficient way on the internet or on the network, the data has to be compressed so that it can be efficiently transferred. So looking at the bandwidth, this compression mechanism comes into picture. So in the last session, the encryption part that we have seen is the function of the presentation layer. So encoding while sending, encryption while sending, compression is again while sending, and when the recipient computer or the web server receives that data, when the actual handshake between client and server happens at this particular layer, then the data will be decoded, decrypted, and decompressed while it is submitted to the application layer of that particular server. So this is it about the presentation layer. Nothing so very difficult. I have tried to put this in a way that you can easily grasp. So three functions. One is encoding, decoding, second is encryption and decryption, and third one is compression and decompression. So I have captured an example here. Suppose if you visit microsoft.com, you'll see a lock symbol on the site which depicts that the site is secured using SSL certificate. So this symbol gives you the confidence of accessing this particular site as this is secured using SSL certificate. So sometimes the lock symbol is not directly visible. If you access my site here, you'll see that here it shows connection is secure. It means the whatever data transfer or whatever you access on my site is encrypted between your browser and the web server where I have hosted my website. So that's where encryption comes into picture. Now moving back to our slide. So we have understood enough about the presentation layer. Now let's try to understand what is actually happening. So suppose you are shopping something on an e-commerce site. When you press the shop now button, the data will be first converted. So that is where encoding comes into picture, and it's also encrypted while you make the transactions. So that's where the presentation layer secures the communication between the user and the e-commerce website. So nowadays, this is a mandate that you should have an HTTPS based site, because now most of the browsers are not loading, or they are primarily highlighting it to the end user or the customers of your website that your site is not secure if it doesn't use encryption. So I've shown you in the previous session. I'll show it to you once again. The test URL, if you try to access it, immediately highlights that the site is not secure. Reason being, there is no encryption or the SSL certificate which is configured on this particular site. So for everybody, it is a mandate that you use a proper SSL encryption or the TLS encryption on your website, and that is done using SSL certificates. So data flow from the presentation layer. So application layer data is submitted to the presentation layer using the port numbers, as we have seen earlier. Now the data at presentation layer, the activity is the data encryption and decryption, then compression and decompression or expansion, and finally viewing the compressed files is done at the presentation layer. So some of the attack vectors, for this time you just need to understand that data encoding decoding mechanisms have certain known vulnerabilities, and standard encoding mechanisms need to be used. So that's where if your website is not updated time to time with a proper encryption mechanism, there is a possibility that somebody may exploit these vulnerabilities to hack the data. So malicious code injection and format string attack are some of the attacks which are possible if the site is not protected properly using an SSL certificate. So that's where for now you just need to understand that these are the attack vectors. If you Google around, you will find a lot of information around these topics. But as this is specific to the OSI model, I won't be covering that part in depth. But in the next session, we'll see how the data is encrypted using the Wireshark tool. So let's delve into the presentation layer in more depth using Wireshark and understand how you can see the encryption happening on a particular website. So with this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you.